record it the first time.
But joke's on you, because I hit record.
Perfect.
So people are actually going to hear this. All
I
right.
don't think anybody really wants to listen to me, but we'll see how that plays out. No, I'm just
But if you do want to listen to him, you can listen to him talk at Lake Erie Speedway during the competition rounds.
yeah, yeah. You gonna be lacing them up this year to come out with us or what?
I hopefully I was the first person to sign up because that's my goal every year. I want to be the first name on that list. I want to be at the
Perfect.
top. And every year, Kevin Ferraro beats me.
You gotta love Kevin, right?
Yeah, he's just got faster fingers than me.
Oh no.
But yeah, welcome back to the world's zestiest drifting podcast. I am your host, Joshua Leatherbarrow, and with me I have Adam Bergner, and our guest today is Ben Bruno. Say
How we doing,
hello.
guys?
Before we start, if you guys can't see it, but if you look below, all of our information and where you can find us is right there. So add us on Instagram and whatnot. Just do it. I'll wait. We got time. Thank you. So today we're to talk about Ben Bruno. You've been hanging out at the track for a long time now, haven't you?
Yeah. I haven't been around drifting for probably as long as you guys have, but I've been around Lake Erie Speedway for the better portion of 13 years now, with just a little bit of time off there and when I went to college and stuff. So no stranger to Lake Erie Speedway. Actually started there in maintenance when I was in high school. Actually worked there with my cousin Paul, who actually works for Daytona. He's like the head of maintenance at Daytona now, so it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, so been around the speedway for a really long time with AJ. So definitely no stranger, as I'm from Erie, with the track being over in Northeast. So I just live on the far side of Erie, closer to the Ohio
Mm.
state line than the speedways, all the way over there by the New York state line.
So
So about
was it just you getting a job there, or is like did family get you involved, or?
Yeah, so honest to God, it was just the start of wanting to make some money as a broke high school kid, really. It was playing some sports and different stuff like that, and my cousin Paul was working there, like I said, so wanted to start making some money. We had tossed around the idea of doing some DJ stuff, which would have been essentially just us pressing a play button on Apple Music over a set of speakers at your 15-year-old birthday parties and stuff like that. But so went the more practical route. He was working out there at the track, and so I came out to give him a hand when they needed a hand, and then he ended up leaving and some other guys leaving, and then it was just me and AJ and some other people that were helping me out with things. But we kind of started to turn the corner of ingenuity of what we were doing at the speedway with like those backstretch banners and stuff. So
Mm.
like when I was like 15 years old, we'd be going up with a ratchet strap, three ratchet straps per each big old sign, one at the top, one through the middle, and one at the bottom. And it's like, that place is like a wind tunnel.
Yeah.
And like, 30-mile-an-hour winds, I'm up there ratchet strapping these together. Well, since AJ has come up with just running them tied along, so it's really just one massive banner from beginning to end in little sections. But so yeah, that's kind of how that started, and doing stuff like that, like hanging off the back of the press box and putting up that Lake Erie Speedway, like little skinny banner that goes all the way around the top of it, off
Jeez.
of like we didn't have the JCB like hoist bucket thing, so I just got up on top of the press box and was like, like this far hanging off of the top of it. It was awesome. That's where it started with the speedway for me though.
So, what do you do
That's
for work
awesome.
now?
Where do I also work now?
Yeah.
So for a long time I sold cars. Now I'm actually managing an auto paint store. It's called Colors Inc. So we do automotive paint and detail supplies. So if anybody ever really needs anything, obviously I'm all the way over in Erie, but an excuse if you can hear the dog barking in the background. My apologies, but anybody needs any auto paint stuff, you're just trying to single stage up, put some lipstick on your pig, let me know, and get you hooked up with a little single stage something.
Awesome.
So, I did a little research on you. So, you got into drifting at what age then?
So you mean like my first interest in it, or like when I actually started like getting a car, building a car?
Well, let me rephrase that. What about riding in Jeff Donati's car got you interested in drifting?
Yeah, okay. So uh yeah, that was like my first real experience, like hands-on in person with drifting. Was I was working the maintenance thing, and it was, I believe it was a Drift Cleveland event, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken. There might have been like 15 cars at the speedway, and
Yeah, I
one
was
of
there for
them's,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
with the Miata.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Uh I don't really remember a whole lot of people that were there. I think I remember maybe Joe Sansone being
Yep.
there. Like at the time, I think, did he have I forget the factory color for it, but the purple, it wasn't an S14 or an
No, it was a Skyline.
R30.
It was an
Yeah, yeah,
R32.
like a GTST or
Yep.
something like that. So I remember like those couple cars being there. But there was and obviously it's no shade to anybody else, but I remember thinking there was this kid that had an LSS 14 that I had seen ripping a little bit while I was like doing some work. And I was like, dude, that kid seems like he's driving a lot harder than like a good portion of the rest of everybody else. So I'm like working, and he comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, where's the closest gas station, and can you take us to go get gas so that I don't have to unhook the truck and trailer and all that?" And I'm like, "Well, sure." So I go over to AJ and I'm like, "Hey, can I clock out, and I'm going to go take this drifter to go get some gas." So I take him to get gas, and we come back and I'm like, "You have to take me for a ride now, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, dude, for sure. Like, jump in." Well, it was Jeff Donati. I didn't really know who he was at the time. And at that time, I think he was honestly relatively new to the sport. Like, I know
Yep.
he had been doing like the RC stuff, but at the time, I believe the car that I rode in was that car that he had gotten out of Florida that had like a reptile painted engine bay in it. I don't know if you guys ever saw that car or not, but he I'm pretty sure he'd just gotten it. It had a 6 liter in it, and I'd never ridden in a drift car or anything like that. So I jump in there, and it was at the time when like you guys weren't even like grid was not on track yet. It
Yeah.
was in the chute, and you'd run out of the chute and run the layout off track, and then the next car or the next two or whatever would go. And so we come off the chute like one, two, three. I'm like peeing my pants a little bit, dude. I'm like, this is like I'm getting planted in the seat, and he hucks it in there. It was big bank layout, or you kind of had the option to do what you wanted there. And not that he was pasted up against the wall, but at that time for me, just even being within a couple cars of the wall was nutty to me. So it was exhilarating. It was a lot of fun, and I really gotta owe it to Jeff Donati, for obviously there's a lot of people that have had influence on things, but I knew as soon as I was done with that that I had to have an LSS chassis, dude. Like I was like, it just seems like the right recipe to go. And obviously, I was young at the time, so I didn't start drifting for quite some time after. But that's how I met Jeff and kind of got into drifting when drifting first started at the speedways.
So how long after that till you got your own car then?
Yeah, so what that would have had to have been like 2015 maybe or something like that. And the year after that I went to college for a year. And then I came home and I ended up working at a car dealership. And there was a kid that had this clean titled S14, the one that I have today now. And he was like, "Hey man, like everything like so obviously I listened to your episode, right? And it's really funny, like me and you actually have a lot of similarities, but some are just total polar opposites to one another. So like I've always had a little bit of luck on the highway robbery side of things. And he
Oh,
looks at me and he's like, "Hey, for like 500 bucks you can have this rolling chassis," and it was clean titled. Like it was not all like, and you guys can ask me whatever you want about that as I go, but it was a clean titled, totally clean car. It had already been an LS car, so it wasn't like clean, clean. It already didn't have the back glass in it. The back of it was already cut off with like the little stupid tube chassis thing off the back of the trunk and all that good stuff. But so I kind of like get this ridiculous deal on the car for 500 bucks just as a roller. And that had to have been 20 the end of 2016. So really like from my first exposure of drifting, maybe I'm a little bit wrong with when it was that Drift to Cleveland event was, but probably like 2 years, 2 or 3 years, because I had gotten out of college, started making some money selling cars, and got that stupid deal on that roller. So that like 2016, 2017 was when I acquired the car that I have now.
deals like that just don't exist anymore.
Dude,
No.
it just continues to like pile up that way, like where I keep finding these highway robbery deals. So like I took a lot of time to build the car because it was like right when COVID hit. So I had sat on the chassis for like 2 or 3 years, while I was saving up some money and different stuff. And I started putting together build lists. And I got one from Jeff Donati on his LSS chassis, because I was like, well, obviously his knowledge is gonna be good. And then I had one from a local guy that had done one but didn't have it anymore. And so I take all this time like really comparing everything out. I get a little bit of help from Joe Simonelli, putting my motor together and stuff like that when the time gets to it. Excuse me. But and then obviously Shaner's helped me out a lot too. But at any rate, so I get these build lists put together, and I'm like, well, how do I get started? And I'm like, let's acquire the big pieces. So I'm like, let's get a T56. And that's like really where I start. When I start putting it together, I find this dude that's got one locally to me, like really, really locally to me. And he only wants for like 1,500 bucks for it. And I'm like, okay, so we're already starting out on like the really cool side of things. So I'm like, all right, I'll come check it out. So I go over to see this T56, and he's got uh like the whole clutch set up out of it and everything, the flywheel. And he's like, I took this out of an older guy's like resto, like he had it in like, I can't remember what it came out of, but let's say it was an Impala. And he's like, he points like over there, and he's like, there's the engine that the T56 came off of. And I'm like, "Oh, what's the deal with that?" And he's like, "Oh, it's got an ECU and harness. It already is, like deleted and all that, and for all the stuff for it to be mated to this, and like, it knows that it's a 6 speed and all that." And I'm like, "Oh, like how much do you want for all that too?" And he's like, "Man, you could like have it all for like $1,700."
What?
So
Wow.
so I'm like, "Dude, I just got, like, my entire turnkey swap minus, like, the mounts and all that good stuff, for 1,700 bucks all in one
Dude.
position, just ready to go." And then I'm like, "You got anything else?" And he goes inside and comes out with, an LS intake with injectors already in it and all that good stuff. And, I'm like, "How much do you want for that?" And he's like, "You can just have it for the 1,700." And I'm like, "Oh my god, dude." Oh,
Oh,
and I got the water pump too, a brand new water pump. So then he's like, "Well, I have this GTO that I swapped to a blower car." And so I had all this extra stuff from the water pump and all that. So I walked out of there like with my entire swap for $1,700. I'm like 2,500 into an S chassis and nearly like, the whole drive line for it without buying anything online.
that's that's
It
crazy.
just I'm really thankful for all that stuff. You know what I mean? You don't always get that lucky, and I definitely wouldn't had been busting into drifting the way that I was able to without finding some of those deals and having guys like Joe Simonelli helping me find those deals locally and stuff like that. So
That's
it was,
insane. That's insane.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a crazy deal.
Mhm. 'Cause that was another thing, right? Like in your episode, it was like, you started with the Miata and like going out to a track that you're like, dude, I can't like there's not even enough power. Like I might as well as just load it up and get out of here. And I was like, well, I started on the sim, which is a whole nother thing. I don't
Yeah,
know
we'll
if you
get to
guys
that.
know about that, but it's I was like, I just want to have a little bit of torque in a lightweight car that I can kind of just chunk and do what I want to do. But I was real calculated with what I was buying and how I was going about putting it together.
That's nuts. Well,
Yeah.
let's get to sim drifting because do you base your early success on being successful from sim drifting?
Yeah, so um like that'd be one of those things, I know everybody's here and there about the sim and how one to one it is and one pack, primarily obviously talking about Assetto. Uh like 100%, I think everybody would agree that, the muscle memory of it and what you're doing is definitely one to one in extents, where like the feel might not always be one to one, but so I mean, dude, I would stand up and die on the hill of like you might as well as throw yourself together a sim. The problem is, between a computer and a setup and all that good stuff, you're gonna be, what you could take a good chunk of getting the start of your car going, you know what I mean? But everything that like I was whole totally able to come off of the sim through COVID. While COVID was going on, I was putting the build list together, starting to put the car together like slowly and just grinding on the sim to even make sure that I could even do it while before I really started investing a lot of money in a drift car. And I decided that was I'd seen enough from myself on the sim to know that I could go do it. And then I started building the car and get the car together, get out to the first event. And this is the thing, right? Like if you know me, I'm not a pompous person. So like what I'm about to say can't be taken as like a cocky thing because that's not what I'm trying to say at all. But at the first event, I mean, I went from like C to C to B like before Saturday, like Friday to Saturday, and then on Sunday during the free for all was running in 7-car trains in the rain. And that was the first time that I wrecked the car was at my first event, right? Like that's the natural progression of that. Like me being overconfident from here and then going and having that one-to-one level of control of the car into real life, but not the situation, right? Like
Yeah.
the real time situation. And then somebody like jumps back in line. One guy spins. I'm not looking 3 cars ahead of me.
Yep.
I'm focused on the door that I'm on, like this far away from on my third day ever real drifting and Wapang. And then there's the first time that I have to cut the front of my car off that, I took my, well, I'm not going to get into the values of clean S chassis, but uh, a clean titled worth S chassis down to a non-clean title S chassis and not even really realizing what I had. You know what I mean? So, but the one to one of sim drifting, like, dude, I was able to hop in real life and I was shredding, like shredding. Like I knew that I had all kinds of stuff to learn, but I'm like and I know like like for guys like us, right? We're like, oh, it's right here, like right. That's where we find our exhilaration anymore is right here. It's not being here and here. But at the time, I'm running, like a clean one back here on my third day drifting. Sim drifting's 100% to a credit for why I was able to start the way that I started. And then, I think like by my second or third or the second event by Saturday, I was in A. So it was like, my first drift event was like fall mats 2021, I think,
Jeez.
if I remember correctly. So uh, I think I was in A by the end of Smash, I think, or yeah, I think that's how it worked out. Or maybe it was summer and then fall. But so sim drifting's huge, and I know that like people play around with the sim and stuff. But if you're thinking about getting into drifting, I would recommend that somebody start right here. Make sure that you have the ability because when you go to building the car, I mean, you can get away with it cheaply. And it's like the age old debate of what do you do to get started in drifting, right? And for some people, it's the handbrake or it's not having the handbrake. It's just a seat and, stuff like that. I would say coilovers, good seat. Maybe if you have the means, you can cut your knuckles and extend your lowers and get started there. Like I've never had anything but cut knuckle and an extended lower. So I mean,
Yeah,
it's
M2.
you don't have to start with the big, Wise Fab or FDF or all that. Obviously there's more affordable solutions and smoke them if you got them. Like if you have the money to go ahead and throw, Wise Fab under your car, I guess go for it. But like, it's so I think the best way that you can start, it's free seed time, right? Like you have the initial investment on the sim and the tower, but it really doesn't take a ton of computer or a ton of this to get the job done, really. I mean, obviously it's nice to have like a phonetic or a belt driven like thrustmaster wheel setup on your sim versus a helical gear Logitech setup, but I mean, dude, if you can get started with a sim. That's how I started was with the Logitech and all that good stuff, and I love it. Like getting into iRacing, even like just to show you like one to ones and other things. I had a buddy that like me and him, I raced a lot. That's actually like where I really started on the sim was with dirt oval stuff on iRacing, and my buddy ended up getting the opportunity to jump in a dirt modified and run some laps at a local track at Raceway 7 in Conneaut, Ohio.
Oh, that's
And
sick.
it was the same thing, dude. It wasn't like necessarily the way that the that the link rear end would, like fluctuate. It was close enough that he could still make laps without spinning the car out all the time. So even if you're not like, I'm not saying that you get a sim to go out and be running doors, but at least you get a sim, you can do it and you get a good handle on those first basic, you know, stepping stones to what you need to do in a real car. It won't feel so foreign. And I'm also a bit really firm believer that if you can do it with no actual like feel, you're going to be exponentially better with real feel of a car underneath of you. You know what I mean? It like think about the processing in the brain of being able to understand exactly how small of a correction on the sim wheel is going to do, move the back of the car a foot on the sim versus being able to feel momentum in real life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sorry to be long-winded about it, but I would die on the hill, like I said, of like the sim is the truth. The sim is the freaking truth, dude.
How many hours do you think you have in it before you did your first event?
Mm, well, I got the sim specifically to start iRacing and drifting on in 2019, and my first event wasn't until almost the middle end of 21. So, obviously at the time I didn't have kids and stuff like I do now, was able to get on the sim a lot more. Uh, it's tough to put an hour amount to it, but you think about like at that point in time, I'd essentially moved away from like jumping on the Xbox and playing Call of Duty and stuff like that to when I had the time free and available to me that I was going to jump on the sim. And I started on like, a floppy ass, like fold in half table and like a kitchen chair and was like, the whole thing's moving and I'm just enjoying the hell out of it. So just get a start how you can, man. That's all I'm saying. Just get started. If you're passionate about something, get started with it however you can and fuck everybody. Excuse my French. Insert the bleep if I get the 30-minute layover for
Nope, too lazy for that.
bleepages, but if not, I don't care. But uh, everybody's so critical about, whether you're talking about your car or your like sim or whatever it is, dude. Like, fuck that. Like, just get started how you can afford to get started and have fun doing it. Like I understand like it not being worth it in certain ways to get started in certain cars and stuff like that, but if all you can afford is your buddy's hand-me-down Logitech sim gear, like take it. Just because somebody said like it's garbage, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, but
same thing in your car,
seat
like a
time is seat
handbrake,
time,
for
though.
instance, when you get into the handbrakey kind of thing. I'm sorry, what did you say?
Seat time is seat time. Just get it however you can. Like,
Right. Right. Like take your stock angle, stock seat, stock power, stock seatbelt Z and just like huck that thing a little bit. It's not the most ideal thing in the world, I get it, but like don't let people talk shit about that or put you down on that cuz you're trying. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? I That's just one of these like more recent things and I know I'm like newer to drifting, but I feel like there's always been that kind of thing, but there's like a whole new level of like people that want to stand on hard business about that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, they'll die on that grave.
right. And I understand that there's some things like you don't always need to use a handbrake and stuff like that, but like, dude, just let these guys that are trying to get started have fun get started. Like,
Yeah, no,
so no matter what it is in your stock power Mustang with no angle. It's an automatic. You know what I mean? Like, dude, try it out. See what you got. Chuck together, over the winter something with a 5 speed in it and a clutch and let's make it happen, right? Like
oh,
it
absolutely.
doesn't need to be all difficult like that, whether it's here or out there.
Yeah, true. I bet though that the kids who are just getting into it and just throwing their cars as hard as they can are having way more fun than the dudes who are complaining about these kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just get the seat time. That's all it is. Like,
Yep.
don't worry
Seat
Yep.
about
time is key.
yeah, don't worry about everybody else and just go and drive as much as you can.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna look something up here. I'm gonna take a quick second here. I'm gonna do some plugging real quick if you guys don't mind, or I can talk about it later.
Nope, right now is perfect.
Perfect. Perfect.
That's actually why
Let me
you're
find
here.
it.
So let's hear it.
Let me find it real quick. So I'm sure that we have plenty more stuff to talk about in regards to,
Correct.
but if you're watching the pod or you're listening to the pod, definitely thanks for joining us and supporting the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm a big part in the Pro Am series, obviously, up in the booth with the Great Lakes Pro Am series. Um, but I just kind of wanted to talk about uh, the payouts this year, man. Uh, Pretty serious business, right?
Yep.
I almost hate.
Yeah.
I'm almost gonna hop on like the other side of it, as you guys are both drivers, and I'm
Start. Okay, we're back.
All right.
okay. Not sure where you cut us at.
Just start over with your plug.
Okay, so uh, I'm sure that we're gonna get into it here in a little bit more about the Pro Am series and how I tie into all that stuff. But if you're watching and you do know me, you probably know that I'm involved with it, and I'd like to take the opportunity to talk about the Great Lakes Pro Am Series payouts this year. And I think, like, even as much as I can plug it, it doesn't really need plugged, right? Like,
Yep.
Josh is
Yeah.
going to be
Uh-oh.
Are we still there? Oh,
Oh.
did Ben disappear?
Yeah, he did.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh, what a disaster. Ah.
That's all right.
Oh
You
my
just gotta
god.
wait for him to come back on.
Dude, you guys went like silent in my headphones. I was like, what the fuck's going on? I look over and it's like, goodbye. It's like, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
Oh shit.
Oh.
Good so far though. Hopefully he knows that he
Yeah, he's messaging me now.
oh, okay.
Gosh. I guess I. Oh, he's back. He's back. Hello.
There he
whoa,
is.
whoa.
Lost you for a second.
Yeah, I was getting ready to like rejoin it, but then it just apparently sucked me back in. So sorry about the Walmart internet. It actually really pisses me off because I pay for the gigabit, dude. Like just the stupid fast internet, and I hardwire everything. And when I run like a speed test, I get like 500, like half speed. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I've told, she's really not my wife, she's my fiance, but we've been together for 14 years. So let's just
Damn.
call her my wife. I'm like, just drop our internet speed back down to like 100 megs. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's so like ridiculous. So sorry about that. I'm not sure where it cut me off that it like timed
You
out
said
on the
almost
internet.
nothing. So.
Yeah, it was like right at the beginning, so
Okay. So like it's you guys are driving it, and I'm sure that you're driving it for the reason that it is. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what other Pro Am series is paying out per round the way that the Great Lakes Pro Am series is this year.
Yeah, I'm trying to get paid.
same.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I mean, that's like even for me, it's why am I in the booth? I could jump out, you know what I mean? It's you can jump out, and like all I would need is like new belts, and that's almost it.
Yeah, like
Like
200
I'd need
bucks.
the LED brake light strip, but we're gonna do that for Paynesville anyway. So I'm almost right there to the pro am rule book
Yep.
already in
Hmm.
my car. So I got to imagine that we're gonna see a lot of new faces this year. And maybe it's not that you see them the entire length of the Great Lakes Pro Am series, but you'll see them, here and there with the way that the payouts are. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. But if you're not familiar with it, um, each round is going to pay out pretty much the same totals every round. Uh, and then I don't know how it's going to affect like the season points fund for the pro am in the payouts, but each round, each round, and I know that you guys know this,
Yes.
but
Yes,
$5,000 to the winner,
that's a lot.
$5,000 to the winner. That's like what we used to pay out like in a total amount for one round
Yep.
for first. So I mean, and then it falls off 2,500 to second, 1,250 to third, 700 to fourth, 350 to fifth. It
Yeah, I think you
just
pay up to 10th, right?
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
all the way down
that's
to 10th at a
yeah,
buck 25.
that's awesome.
But I mean, 350, like even 350 at fifth, like what was a win in the pro am before? Like 750,
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
think.
think
1,200.
so.
Like you're almost, you're a third or a quarter of the payout of what the winner used to get inside of the top five now.
Yeah,
But like even with that, I just think like what other pro am series is paying like that right now?
I can't think of one.
I
Well,
mean,
actually, Clutch Kickers now is a scouting series, so you could say that they're paying, but like you don't have to win for them to pick you.
Yeah,
right, right. And that I'm glad that you bring that up. We'll have to talk about that. That's a big change in the landscape of pro am driving, huh? Like that
yeah.
like spotting series that they're adding, like how does that get looked at? Is it really going to be like based off of success, or is it going to be based off of talent shown and stuff like that, right?
Are
Because
they?
that probably be like, I don't know that that's your guys' specific goals, but like, it's more appealing to like guys like us to want to go run in a series that's a spotter, right? Because what's the criteria on
Yeah.
what gets you the nod on it?
Who says they're not just gonna pick like their most favorite driver? Like, let's say Clutch Kickers, like Taylor Ray shows up. He's got a huge backing. It would look good for Clutch Kickers if they just pushed him through.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing, right? At the end of the day, like racing is racing is a business
Yep.
in a sense. I know that drifting, like even at the highest level, you're kind of in a money pit. And really, it's all the same. I mean, if you look across the board, NASCAR, all that stuff. Like, I've got good buddies that are running high end dirt stuff with some of the best in the country, and it's just, it's like just ridiculous what it costs, like per tire when you get into stuff like that. Like a dirt tire for a late model, I think the last time that I knew that they were like 275 a tire. Like right, and me and you were sweating over spending 100 a tire. Use
Yeah.
two on the back, and they're like
Yeah.
needing four new ones every weekend to stay competitive. Like
Yeah.
so, I know that it's never profitable, but how much of it goes into that? And that's what I think. Like when you look at the Great Lakes Pro Am series, that's kind of where it really sticks out, at least from what I hear back from the drivers that I get to talk to. is, like take a guy like Troy, right? Obviously, you're really good friends with Troy, Adam.
Yeah.
Um, he's like, man, I love it. Like, I'm pretty sure he's gonna make the pro spec run, right?
I don't believe so. No.
He's not gonna do it. Okay.
No.
So he's gonna be back to defend his title, that means. Because he
Yeah.
already said that. He
Yeah.
was like, dude, I don't know, like it just runs so well. Like
It
it's
does.
so well organized and it's so like diverse on what we can do with layouts and stuff. And like everybody's so cool and everything's so fair. I think, there's and we can talk about some of that stuff because I know that that was like some of the questions that people were giving you on Facebook, which
Yep.
I'm sure we'll get to eventually. But it's
Yeah.
like, I don't think that there's really any favoritism to it. I think we all understand like we have a really cool thing in our hands, like a really cool thing to be able to be licensed by FD to be holding this series at Erie. You know what I mean? Like as much as everybody wants FD to come back, like and I know that I work for the track, and if you know me and you know me in that capacity, please don't take what I'm about to say as like to the heart, period. But like the percentage chance of us seeing FD back at Erie is really, really low. Like
Yes, yes, I agree with you.
there's just it was it they sold it out. It was, excuse my French again, it was fucking awesome. If you didn't get the chance to go to FD Erie, you really missed out on
Yep.
something. I think that they underutilized the layout
I
personally.
agree. I agree.
So I wonder how much of that has to do with them not coming back. Like I wonder if the drivers in a sense were like, Erie was great, but like if that's the layout that we're going with, like it kind of sucked. Like I hate to like say that, right? But like the layout kind of sucked for what they could have done with it. And
I agree.
but the biggest reason that we're probably not going to see him again is there's no room for expansion. There's like God knows if you know Drift PA, Ohio, New York, and Lake Erie Speedway, AJ Moore is the guy that's in charge of the speedway, and he puts pretty much everything back into the facility for us, in particular to drifting, between the water pit and repaves and stuff
Hmm.
like that. But it would have to be expandable by like a great margin to have more vendor space, more hauler space, more spectator space, like more, more space to have that more festival-y atmosphere to it than as much it when they were there they had to make do with what they had, and there was like little vendorage, right?
Yep.
But what they want is big vendorage and that big corporate sponsorship that comes with that big business side of things to be able to really show itself. And it would take like essentially filling in all that area back behind that red barn and stuff to get that space, or expand on that parking lot up front out into the field more to be able to do something like it. So I'm just being your people's people's person that I am, that if you are one of the people that listen to this and frequent Lake Erie Speedway in PA, Ohio, New York, the Pro Am, whatever it is, the likelihood of seeing FD back at Erie is just low. It just is going to take a lot of money to get the facility
Yep.
in a position that they really want to come back and be able to have that big festival y kind of round that they want to
Yes, it is low, but it's not zero. So
have. Mm-mm.
keep bugging
Yeah.
FD and tell him you want him to come back.
Yep. Yep. And I think as a community, we just got to do everything that we can, right? Like that's I'm not sure if you saw in the group somebody was asking for event pages to be made on Facebook so that they could be shared for spectatorship.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
and I think that especially you guys have been in the game a lot longer than I have, and I know like here and there spectatorship is a thing and it's not, but I think that we'd all agree that it's a lot cooler when there's that back stretch of the fence is filled up with people watching you try to go for the wall tap,
Yep.
stuff like that. And it's I when push comes to shove, we all have as a community have to take more seriously the commitment to expanding the sport and being an advocate of the sport, right? Like that's people that I work with and stuff like I try to like keep that part of my life separate from like my professional self, to an extent cuz I don't want people to look at me and think like, "Oh man, you think like you're so cool" and stuff like that. But when it does come up, those people generally speaking, want to come to an event, want to get in the car with me, want to go for a lap, and want to experience it. And it's just being an advocate. Hey, sharing that you're going to the event, sharing those ads leading up to the event.
Mm-hmm.
Whether, and obviously now I'm kind of playing a part over at Paynesville with Jerry and those guys too. Uh, no matter what it is, it's we're able to have these events because of the support of the drivers and the spectators. So the more people that you can get to come to an event with you, the more people that you can make aware of an event. It's just like selling a car, right? When I sold a car, if if I wanted to sell 5 cars, I knew that I needed to talk to 10 people, not 5, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you tell 10 people about a drift event, how many are going to come? One or two of them? It's so just tell as many people as you can, share
Yep.
as many posts as you can, and keep the racetracks great, man. Like you see it all
Yeah.
over the country right now. Racetracks closing their doors because of the cost of insurance or the expanding of um, neighborhoods and
Yep.
civilization closer to racetracks like Cletus and Freedom Factory and all that. Like that's gone a little bit quiet with him and his series and stuff, but he's still got a huge problem down there with them, expanding the neighborhoods close to the racetrack and wanting to shut down the racetrack. So, I mean, we have to support the racetracks. Go to your local dirt track, have a beer, take your friend with you, support them. Go to your local asphalt track, watch even if it's not drifting, go watch the weekly series every now and again. Support the track, take your friends, and that keeps the doors to these places open. So just be an advocate to motorsports because it's not just, especially for guys like us, like Paynesville. I don't even know if Paynesville does weekly racing anymore, but
No, I don't
that's
think so.
when I the last time so that's the first time I ever went to Paynesville. It was Lake County, right?
Yep.
Is what it
Yep.
used to be called. And it was Lake County and I went for oval racing. Like I still had never even been to a drift event. That was the first time that I was ever there. So it's just doing stuff like that, and especially in particularly to drifting, like just be an advocate, share those posts leading up to it, throw them on your story, tell 30 of your friends to come out, man. It's I tell them to stay for the party. Nobody ever wants to stay for the party. It's like the best part of it. Bring your tent down. Don't drive all the way back. I know, like you guys travel, right? So your friends would probably come over from Ohio with you, and then
Yeah.
like, hey, bring your tent out. I know that, you don't always want to be responsible for like people eating and stuff like that. And that's what I'd tell them. I'm like, hey, like I've got some water, I've got some of this that you can have, but like, bring down a case of beer, bring a tent with you, bring some hot dogs or some hamburgers. There's grills all over the place. I got a grill anyway, but it's like,
Yeah.
you can live with me at the track and just party and do some drifting for the weekend. So, come get the whole experience.
It's definitely a good time.
And that's my favorite part, right? Like me and Adam talk at the track quite a bit. Me and Josh have not talked as much at the track in person, but I
Mm.
think that you'd both agree, right? Like my favorite
Yeah.
part about drifting is just like the community, and I love being an advocate of it, right? And it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you always
Mhm.
see me bouncing around, smile on my face, just saying what's up to people and seeing how everybody's weekend's going and all that good stuff. So it's my favorite
Yeah.
part about it.
Yeah, I feel like the socializing part, like after drifting, is some of the best stuff you can do. It's like going up to that driver you just almost hit with your car and just like screaming at each other on how dope that was and just making a
Yeah.
friend for life. It's some of the best.
Yep. since we're on
Yeah, for
that,
sure.
since we're on that, let's talk about how, like, when I first got into drifting, because it's pretty cool, right? It's like, so there's a couple of local guys, Brian Reichert, who's on my team, Team
Yep.
Vacation, with the silver Mercedes. He lives maybe 10 minutes from me, where I'm at here in Erie. Um, we had been playing like Forza Motorsport and stuff like that, drifting on controller and all that good stuff. And he had had his car, and he's like, dude, like, as funny as it is, like, that stuff all translates, like, even off of a controller. Like, excuse me. Um, and he's like, you gotta get this car. So I had gotten that car. We had already talked about all that, and I'm sitting on it. And I go to like summer mats, or it was fall mats 2020, and like that's when I really get the bug for it. So I go out, Brian's on team vacation, I build my car, I do that fast progression in my first ever event, and like I'm in B, and I get to tandem with this Mustang. And it was like the first hardcore tandem that I had ever run, and apparently he had ever run too. So we're like making the last turn. He's got his arm out the window. He's like, "Whoa!" And then he's like, "Holy shit!" Like, that S14 still right there, and his arm comes back in the window, and he's like, "Oh shit!" We get off track, and I'm like, I gotta go chase this guy down. And I had remembered where he was pitted at. So I go over, and, like, we dap each other up, give each other a big hug. We're like, that was so sweet, dude. Like, we're definitely gonna drive more, like, for the rest of the weekend, like, blah blah blah. And so, like, we go and we drive a little bit, and that was Jesse. Um Gosh, why can't dude, he's still one of my really good friends, and of course I would blank on his last name. Oh my gosh, I feel like such a jerk, seriously. But Jesse with the Mustang, it'll come back to me. Um, and so me and Jesse drive like that whole weekend, and I end up, doing a little bit of random tandem with this green stock powered BMW. I think it was an E36. Might have been an E46. I'm not good with my BMW. Sorry, BMW boys.
He's
But
really
so
not
I get to
though.
tandem with him. Kind of the same thing happens, right? We're like, oh, this is sweet. Like, like, and I'm like, I had just gotten to drive with this guy. Like, we should all drive together. So we all go and we drive together. Well, like, the next event goes by, and we're just like all three of us driving together a whole bunch, and we're like, so I've never met either of these kids, and it was Paul. See, look, I'm forgetting his last name too. Oh my gosh, why am I such an idiot? I'm such an idiot. These guys are like my best friends to the day. It makes it even worse that right now I'm blanking on their last names. But um so we end up making a team, and it was a questionable team name for sure, but we went with it. So we were team no talent. So we
Oh, I
had team
remember
no
that. Yep.
Yeah, we had team no talent. And then it was kind of funny, because like I'm wanting to hang around with Brian, because like, so this would go back into like some of the similarities. Like, I rely heavily on Brian, Dave Shaner, Joe Simonelli for like tools and help with my stuff. Like when you were talking about, my car was over at my buddy's, we kind of had this falling out. I didn't have any falling outs with anybody, but so Brian's that guy. So like I'm bringing no tools to the racetrack. Like to the day, I still don't, because Brian has a full outfit in his trailer. So like I'm with my team, but I'm wanting to pit with Brian because he's like my lifeline to be able to function at the track. So like it would be no talent right next to vacation, so that I could park by Brian and have jacks, like even to change my tires, dude. Like I didn't even have anything to change tires except for my wheel key. And it like turned into like a whole bunch of people asking to be like pitted with us for some reason. So then like Team No Talent kind of got expanded, and we added Ben Thompson, who had the stock power FC for forever.
Hmm.
He was a huge
Yep.
ripper. He's kind of stuck in B for some reason or another. Now he's got his LS FC. Um And then uh who else got added? Ben was hanging out with the Quins. The Quins were never on No Talent, but they would pit by us all the time. And then Mike Christian with the CTSV. Um, and Mike had actually gotten added to No Talent. And I'm not exactly sure how that all worked out, but so we had kind of like going into the second year for some reason, like kind of started to like split apart. Like we weren't driving together as much anymore and stuff, or it would just be like me and Jesse, or me and Paul, or me, Paul, and Jesse. So we kind of split apart and we all went our different ways. And we were actually going to start like a more like a smaller team that was really just me, Paul, and Jesse. But Paul kind of wanted to go a different direction in competition and wanting to travel some more and stuff. And Jesse ended up selling the Mustang. God, I wish he never sold the Mustang. Like, I hope Jesse watches this episode because he knows how I feel about him and the Mustang. But Jesse, you should have kept your Mustang. You're going on like year number 3 of not driving, and I miss you, brother. And I want to get doors with you. You're my first tandem. You're one of my first teammates, and I miss you, brother. Paul has been drifting. Obviously, I'm sure you probably know Paul. Paul Robinson with the green
Mm.
LS.
Yeah.
Yeah, we hung out with him
Yeah,
at PRI.
Yes.
yeah.
Hmm.
So
Good
Paul,
dude.
that's who that other Paul was. Paul Robinson.
Okay.
Um, that was on my team, and God knows Paul's a wheel man, right? Like Paul
He's very
shreds.
good. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
really, really
driven
precise
with him a few
driver.
times.
Yeah. He's one of those
Yeah.
guys that could definitely make it into pro spec and pro, I think, just with how precise he is as a driver, and like his talent level is really, really high. And then, he's doing that thing with the stringless alignment plates now is
Which
really
are
cool.
dope. Dope.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
those
are
are really
sick.
cool. So plug there for 11 tenths Motorsports. So head on over to his website, check out. He's got several different platforms of stringless toe plates for your quick adjustments, especially you comp guys. Go
Hmm.
check those out. 11tenthsmotorsports.com. Um, Paul's a super smart guy. He works for Chevy. He was working, he did like the stability control and the traction control for the C8 and all that good stuff when it was all top secret stuff. He's an engineer. He's really, really smart. So head
That's
over there,
awesome.
check his stuff out. But yeah, so I wanted to talk about that because we were talking community, and it's just crazy how open arms the drift community is. Whether you're trying to get started, if you listen to this episode and you think you're thinking about getting into drifting, I'm sure any of these guys would be willing to help you out. Feel free to shoot me a message anytime, even if it's just you want to come out and spectate one, you want to go for a ride, figure out how to get in. You can drop right here, message me here, and I can help you get pointed in the right direction or tell you who you need to talk to about getting into that kind of stuff. So the drift community is super cool like that. Don't hesitate to do it.
Let's
Yeah.
talk about Paynesville real quick because you and I had a slight disagreement about these rule changes for the competition. I'd like to just bring that up real quick because you guys before would you just kind of run what you brung. You show up, you want to be in the competition, you put up your money and you drive. And now my thing is you guys put this 245 300 treadwear tire roll in, and now there's dudes like me who've already purchased all my tires for the season, and now I gotta buy new tires for this track for something that's like not that meaningful to me, and like it just makes it a little bit more difficult for me just to like show up and just drive.
Yeah, yeah. So in total, let's talk about that all the way around.
Hmm.
Last year, obviously I knew of Jerry. I had actually talked to Bryce a couple of times at Erie and different things online. was out there just as a driver. It was my first time ever going. Besides Erie, I had been to pit race one time.
Mm.
It was my first journey really outside of Erie, besides pit race that one other time, and went down to run the cash comps because same thing, right? It's run what you brung. There's
Yep.
really no rule set to it. You don't have to have a cage. I happen to have one. But like the pro am, I can not everybody can just go run and jump into the pro am without
Hmm.
having to spend exponential amount of money to get the car up to the rule book to be able to compete. With fire suits and all that stuff. So kind of go through that last year. Fell short a couple of times. And they had asked towards the end of the year for open input on things that could be improved on in specific to the comp and the event overall. And everybody gave some feedback. And I would say that there was an overwhelming feeling of, if the cash comp is a problem for people, then we just don't have to do it. And I felt like the cash comp was adding at that point in time a really valuable piece that was pulling some drivers out to Paynesville that probably really wouldn't had gone if it wasn't for it. And that may or may not be true. That was just my personal opinion from having gone and seen some of the people that had gone, like Adam, for example. I know that it's probably pretty close to you. The cost of drifting there is relatively inexpensive. And like I just ranted about, as much as we can support, we
Hmm.
will, so there's
Yeah.
that aspect to it too. But I know that you're a comp guy, and I'm sure that you wanted to go out and do that as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. It
so
definitely
that
reeled. It definitely reeled me in for sure. Being cash comp.
So that was kind of it. And I wanted to go to Paynesville regardless, but the cash comp was really what took me there to start with. And they I think Bryce and Jerry, if it was going to be a headache to them and be taking a lot of time away from the event as well, that it could have lived without it. And I kind of fell on the opposite aspect of it. So I kind of said to them, hey, if if you guys don't think it's going to be worth running it, I'd be glad to help out, put some things in place for the comp to be able to keep it around and take some of the weight of it off of your guys' shoulders if it's not something that you really want to put a lot of time into. And so they did. They came to me and they said, yeah, you can kind of, excuse me, oversee the comp thing. But I was very I still want to take part in it because I can't be in the pro am. I'm like this close to being able to be in the pro am, but I'm not going to force my way into the pro am to get my butt kicked with half the right equipment. So it's um he says, yeah, I mean, as long as you think that it can stay fair and not stop, the overall production of the comp, like you can compete in it too. So then, like, truth be told to you, we really didn't get started on putting heads and minds together on it until maybe a month and a half ago or 2 months ago. And really, a lot of the stuff that's even in place was asked for by the drivers. Um, I know that both of you guys are in that group and probably saw when Bryce was polling some things, and like, I'm not trying to point fingers at anybody, so please don't go messaging this person and be like, hey, what the heck. But Theon really wanted to have a season's point fund, and then there was several people that really wanted to have a tire rule. Um, I kind of fell here nor there on some of these things, but wanted to be able to provide something that was giving the drivers back what they wanted, and I felt like the season points fund in particular would be a good way to continue to give back a little bit of the investment in the comp back to the drivers. So it was pretty easy to come up with a season's point fund. To be honest with you, it kind of just follows that FDE kind of season point fund thing, and then to be honest with you, per the rounds and all that good stuff, I kind of just made Chat GPT kind of outline me what the breakdown needed to be for how it was gonna pay its way out and stuff like that. It's remarkable what AI can do for you, really. Um, the tire rule thing, um, I'm not gonna lie, like I can be the one that can be hung for the fact that it's a 245. There was a want for it to be a bigger tire, and I felt like the Painesville comp catered to a lower entry point vehicle. You know what I mean? Like
I
where I
agree.
would say that like us three going into a Painesville cash comp, I would say that we're a little bit overbuilt for what I think the normal demographic would be of it.
I
Where,
do
we're
agree.
all
Hmm.
driving 2,000-pound cars with 400 horsepower or more or thereaboutish. I think me and Adam are on the low side of that. Like I'm
Um,
probably only making 350. I've never even been on a dyno. It's just all self-learn, stock
Yep.
5.3
mine's
with a
yeah.
cam and springs and stuff. Like
Mine's 330. So
yeah, like I'm me and you are probably damn near 1 to 1.
Yeah, mine's
yeah.
So
like six something.
Theon Theon was the one that I had the most input from in general on some of this stuff, and he really wanted it to be bigger.
Hmm.
I think what he wanted was a 265 max.
Yep.
I felt like a stock power BMW is probably not wearing much bigger than a 225 or
Probably
235. You know,
235 max for sure. Yeah.
really. So I'm like, if it's up to me, and I have to keep this a relatively level playing field. And you could go into the discussion all over the place about the actual sizing of the tire and what a 245 on my car feels like compared to a stock BMW and so on and so forth. Um, but I felt like if the tire was too big, that would really, really cut those guys out of the game. So I felt like a 245 was big enough for guys like us to be able to have a decent amount of grip underneath of us. And then you had, like who else is gonna come, right? Like
Mhm.
Casey's talked about coming. Will he come? I don't know. But do we want Casey showing up and being able to run a 265 against a stock powered BMW?
Wouldn't be
Is
very
that
fair.
real? Right, is that really fair to the BMW guy?
Personally,
So,
he'd probably struggle pretty hard following a stock BMW on a bigger
right,
tire. But
right. Which is also a really valid point, right?
yeah,
Um, I felt like I wasn't going to be able to get away without having one, but what was going to be one that was going to be fair for everybody and keep the little man in the game.
I
So,
think I think a 245 is probably pretty even. I feel it's like
and
that. It's that line.
and I wouldn't even call myself an organizer of Painesville. I'm just kind of helping out so that I can and that we can continue to have the cash comp. So I would not even put me in that bracket. I don't know if they would or not. They'd probably be willing to give me that badge of honor, but it's like, it's I've seen myself as a driver nonetheless there that than you two would be. I don't think that I really have anything more to of it. My plan as far as um like when we get there for comp is like we're all going to work together as drivers of what a layout is that we'd like to run for a compy thing. I think I'd like to try some different things than what have been tried in the past there, like maybe using that thicker area of the X. Like this is a real like raw bedtime thought I had. I don't even know if it'd work. But using it as like a turn point or something, like instead of only being limited to what the track has to offer for layouts, using some of that space as long as everybody's willing to do it, because it could be pretty damn technical to try to put in like a hairpin right there and come out a different direction of the X than like, using it as a dog leggy kind of clipping point. Um
They did try that once, like 2015 ish, 2014 ish, and I crashed my car. It was pretty dope.
yeah. So but just trying to keep it fresh for everybody, and nobody in the organization level at Painesville really wants that thing to be over engineered. I don't want it over
Yeah.
engineered. um
Agree.
Really the biggest thing was just some people were asking for some things. um so we really just tried to give the people that are driving some of the things that they wanted to see in place. And then the only other aspect to it is we're trying to get it pumped up. Like, I had the 2 rounds that I fell one step short of walking away from probably cost me $1,300 in purse money, you know? And that's where, like, on my aspect of things is it is a fun comp and everybody wants it to be a fun comp. I want it to be a fun comp. We do not want the identity of it to be anything but a fun comp. If it takes off hard enough and with this like drag racy street racy style like buy-in thing that we do there where we can kind of set what the buy-in is per what we're willing to pay to get in and what everybody can afford. If it takes off big enough that it has to have a standalone, that's what I told Bryce and them was if it gets to that point, it gets to that point, and it should be able to be making you enough money for it to be a standalone kind of thing. So then their structure of event would change, now where we've gone to 2 days, which I don't think was totally my soul doing, but it was something last year that after being there that I said to him, this would be fucking awesome as a 2 day because like I come down with so much focus on the comp that I don't do a lot of like fun driving. And like I think it was the time that you were there, Josh, that Kiri came down with me, and like I got to shred like 2 or 3 fun laps with Kiri, and it's just so fun driving there, dude. Like, and I just wanted to like, but by the time the comp's over, I want to load up and go back to Erie.
Yep.
So I'm like, make it a 2 day. Well, now they're all 2 days, which is fucking awesome. Like that's such a big deal for them in their growth at Painesville, dude. It's awesome. To see Painesville come back and like, you see it take so much time for a drift event to get built up, and they've done an awesome job over there. Now being able to move to a 2 day structure is huge for them.
Yeah. Lost his audio.
Yeah, we can't hear you. You kind of froze too. You there?
I
We lost your audio there, boss. Oh, it's a nice stretch break.
mm-hmm.
Oh, it's a long one, dude.
Yeah, it is. You might need to text him or something.
I messaged
I don't
him.
know.
Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Oh, you're
Oh,
back.
now we hear you.
That must have gotten bumped or something.
Just,
My apologies.
it's
But
okay.
if you're live, I can just kind of keep rolling.
No,
Um,
I'm recording, but we're not live or anything. Use this as a
Yeah,
moment
we're
to
not.
stretch. I'll just cut this out. Oh. All right, I'm cool.
so I think that That kind of encapsulates all the Painesville stuff, really. I'm really glad to be on board and be able to just bring a little bit of structure that, when we're competing for that much money, that was my big point about it is it definitely needs to be a fun comp, but when you're competing, we were competing where if you won like the last two rounds of last year, like what you were winning was going to be more than what you'd win at the pro am. So it was like, like the structure, you can't necessarily have three different judges every round. Like there needs to be the same three judges every round. And what they're judging needs to be concise and have some more structure to it so that, nobody feels that it's unfair. And speaking to that directly could go a couple of different ways because I'm probably really I was probably the biggest stink raiser of it last year, right? Like I came
Yes.
down, I kind of felt like that I probably could have won both of those rounds. And I don't mean to take anything from either of those guys because they drove their butts off. And over time, I've watched that footage quite a bit more and felt like, I probably most definitely lost against Keith. I thought that still I probably may had beaten Colin, but so as long as things are straightforward and I knew those pots aren't getting any smaller, it just needed to have a little bit more regulation in the decision side of things. That's all.
Speaking
So
on
it's
that, the one where you lost to Colin, I was a judge for that one, and there was probably five of us up in that booth, and we kind of just whatever Scott Petty said, we just agreed on because there was dudes up there that like haven't drifted in a few years or like don't drift at all, and we're just like, yeah, Scott Petty kind of seems to know what he's doing, so whatever he says.
yeah. And I had gotten the opportunity to talk to Scott with that and I don't know, was that the time that my wife came all ballistic up there?
Yes.
Were you in there?
Yeah, I think it was.
That was that was a big problem for me. My dad was actually there. My dad got a little bit upset with me because Emily had gone and done that and I was like, like no. Like that's not how I would conduct myself.
But
That's not
I
how I
do understand where she's coming from, though. Like, I do
She was
understand
really
it.
upset about the money.
Yeah.
She was really upset about the money. She had felt that that had cost us, because that was the second one that she felt that I won.
Mm-hmm.
But it is what it is, right? Like I have the dual side perspective of it versus her one side perspective of it. And I love her for that. Her
Mm-hmm.
passion for wanting to like defend me like that is awesome. But as far as like it's just not how I would
Yeah.
go about it myself and it's not how I want to conduct myself. So I'm glad that I'm glad that we're talking about it and I
Mm-hmm.
know that you guys know about that incident and that that's not how I want to conduct myself or if I were my own team, like that's not how my race team would conduct itself is under that it is what it is. A decision's made and it is what it is. So it's but yeah, so I had got to talk to Scott about that and he gave me one specific reason that I lost that and it is what it is, it's been a big fuel for me to be better, right? It's obviously I'm not out at the pro am and stuff and I really do drifting to have fun and that was a big point of contention for me to even get into that comp drifting side of stuff was I didn't want to take the fun out of it knowing I'm a competitive person. So it's been really easy for me to just because these guys are good drivers. Colin's a great
Hmm.
driver. Keith's a great driver. Adam's a great driver. You're a great driver. You've all been driving longer than me, so there's always something that I can learn, even if it's just at Erie having fun for the weekend. I might be learning something about the way that I'm using left foot brake and stuff like that. So it's anything to progress and be a better driver. I'm always after running the hardest laps that I can. So. Well, I
What
guess I know I've got us on the long one, so I guess I'll kind of uh cater more to what you guys have in front of you from what you want to ask and what other people want to ask or anything that you want me
see
to talk about.
when you started, you just kind of like I feel like you read my notes and just kept picking each bullet point. Like I didn't even have to bring it up. You just talked it for me.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
good.
I mean, it really like since I've gotten into drifting, everything's just been like up and up, really. Like
Such a great sport.
It's so
yeah, I mean,
good.
I got in like we talked about. I got on that first team, and then we kind of dispersed, and obviously I was hanging around Team Vacation a lot, and so then I jumped on Team Vacation with them, and those guys are awesome. Like you want to talk about a second family. If anybody doesn't know the Team Vacation guys, Zach Snyder, Aaron Lyon, Kiri Anelzone, all these guys, all their wives, all their kids. Like we all get together. I have two kids now. Zach has two kids. I believe Aaron has two kids, if I'm not mistaken. And they're just a short football toss down the road from us here in Erie too. So they're down closer to the Franklin area, so not too far from here. So at any given time, they all live a little bit closer to one another, and then me and Brian live up here, and they hang out a bit more than we do. But they really do like they'll do game night and stuff like that. Everybody gets invited down. We're more than welcome to spend the night down there. So we try to do stuff through the winter. The group chat's always super active, um and then from there I just wanted to be more involved in the community, and I got into just helping a little bit at the events with just little things like I think I ran grid like once or twice last year, and then they asked me to come to staff day and stuff, so I was really more in the volunteer line. And then coming into this year, there was some people that wanted to take a little bit of a step back from having their weekends tied up, almost every weekend all summer long. So a couple of us got asked to, take a little bit heavier of a role. So, like me, Zach, Darren, Aaron, Brian Reichert, anybody else that I'm forgetting, not trying to shortchange anybody. um, but all really kind of jumped into more of a staffy role this last year. And obviously, I got involved with commentating because we wanted to just have a little bit more of a professional approach um, to the live stream than what Josh and Brian O'Connor had gotten going for us. And then obviously, like Brian moved, so now it's Zach up there with
Hmm.
me. Um, and then Josh, I think kind of just took a little bit of a step away from drifting there for a
Yep.
little bit. So we miss him. Obviously, he's a great guy. It's been cool to see him come around and spectate and just support. Like we were talking about earlier, anything that he understands, come out, support the drift events and all that good
Hmm.
stuff. So that kind of progressed that side of things. And then last year, I went over to Paynesville and made some more friends and different stuff like that. Saw what a great thing they have going on over at Paynesville, and wanted to continue to be able to have the comps for guys that can't get into that pro am stuff, because I know that the saturation's heavy,
Hmm.
between here over to way out by you guys and further into Ohio, and down to the Pittsburgh area. So just kind of trying to help give all the resources that I can to anywhere that's drifting near us. And that's another thing. If you're, you know, um, if you think that there's something that I can do to help with your drift event, feel free to reach out to me. I think at this point I've kind of got my plate as full as I want it to be, but um, haven't made some of the adjustments on the driving side to be doing some of the driving things that I'd wish I was doing at this point, which is fine. So just, kind of make the most of I don't want to call myself a promoter because I just help a couple different promoters around here, but just be the best promoter of drifting, the best advocate of drifting that I can be. So, I'm always looking. Just had a baby girl a couple weeks ago, so things are a little bit hectic at home. But yep, Stella Rose Marie Bruno. So she was born at 6 pounds on 125.25. So she's upstairs, a couple weeks old now.
Congrats,
Little
dude. That's
sister to
awesome.
Andrew. Thank you guys. Thank you. Um, but what I was going to say was, if you have a sim, I'm always looking to do some sim driving. I feel like a lot of the times I don't do things because I don't have anybody to do it with. So feel free to shoot me a message. Just saw it just a second ago. It's at Benny Slides on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook, Ben Bruno. You can tell that that's me. I'm pretty sure my cover picture is an awesome picture that cardiac arrest, aka Mac. I think it's is it Gigi or Gigi? Sorry, Mac. Don't mean to butcher your last name, but a great nationwide known drifting photographer, and cardiac arrest is my cover picture of a couple different pictures of my car. My profile pictures me with a handlebar mustache. I might break that one back out. Trying to decide if I save it for the teams event or if I break it out early in the year, but so you can tell that's me there. You can see all kinds of videos there. Make sure that you drop over to Team Vacation on Facebook and Instagram. Give those a follow. And I definitely wouldn't be doing my job. And I'm sorry, these guys might have more questions for me. I don't mean to be like signing off, but um, uh, plug in Lake Erie Speedway. What an awesome place. I know that a lot of people watching this are going to be from the drifting community, not necessarily the local Erie community, but the Erie community really doesn't realize what a great venue they have in their backyard and some of the things that it brings to the area. So make sure that you go over to all the social medias. You can find them on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, anywhere that you can get social media. You can find Lake Erie Speedway at Lake Erie Speedway. Also, for the full event schedule for the whole year, you can head over to www.lakeeriespeedway.com and check out all that good stuff. We've got an event for everybody at the Speedway: wine festivals with steak cook-offs. Any like you, there's stuff at the Speedway that you can bring your wife to go do. So, um, yeah, that's kind of that. That's the 5-minute overview of my whole career in drifting and getting into the speedway and all that good stuff. So
So at the end of every episode, we get a bunch of questions that we asked on Facebook, and we're just going to answer them. Just we're going to rifle them off. A lot of them are terrible questions, but we're just going to do it.
yep, yep.
If Adam, if you have those questions up.
Oh, let me find him again. I actually do have one. I actually personally asked AJ. Uh, he asked, "Is dirt still more important than Nitro Circus?" He said you would know what that's about.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, a couple of years ago, Nitro Circus Live came to the speedway, and I'm a huge, huge Travis Pastrana guy. Like, he was
Same.
my idol when I was a kid. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like early age internet. He had the TV show going already and stuff, and like the internet was still crude. Not as crude as it was like in the 90s or anything like that, but we're talking like early 2000s. And like I figure out like a way to like email something pertaining to Travis Pastrana, And so I like send this email and I'm like, hey, like I'm this like little broke kid. I'm like, 8 years old in Pennsylvania. Like, is there any way that I could get a pit bike? But at any rate, so they're coming to Lake Erie Speedway, and I'm stoked about it. And I'm helping my buddy Chad. He races super late models. Plug him too. Go check out Chad Rate Wild Child Racing. He's a hell of a wheelman. Um, Lots of money in dirt racing, dude. But so we were gonna go hit a big race, and it was gonna take place the same time that Nitro Circus was gonna be at the speedway. And I like texted or called AJ and was like, "Hey, are you gonna be able to survive without me? Like, I feel like I need to go to this dirt race really bad." And he was like, "Yeah, like, go ahead to the dirt race." So I kind of left him hanging at Nitro Circus Live. So that's like what I do at the speedway at all the non-drifting events is I just help AJ with everything that he needs. Like, so if like the beer coolers or like I just kind of oversee some things so that he can deal with the biggest fish that need fried and I deal with like the medium and small fish for him during events no matter what that might be. So
Nice, nice. That was a good one.
yeah. Yeah, me and AJ have a lot of history, man. AJ's like a second dad to me. I spent those years working at Lake Erie Speedway. My dad was working for General Electric, and they placed him down in Kansas City, Missouri when I was a junior and a senior in high school. And AJ was like a dad to me for, that time, just making sure I wasn't being a goofball while my dad was spending his time in Kansas City. So
Nice. That's awesome. Let's see. I got another question here. This one's from Susie. This is Vinny's girlfriend, fiance. She says, "Does Ben Bruno think there is ever any biased decision making when judging comp, or is it still all based on technicalities?" She says, "I've always been curious with, or when a battle is so close between two drivers, if the winner of the round is determined based off of whether the judges think the winner will advance farther, or they know the driver picked to move on to the next round is capable of driving a better lap."
well, let's address this three types of ways.
Hmm.
First, for starters, and I'm sure Susie knows this, you guys know this. If you know what I'm involved with in the pro am, you know that I have nothing to do with the judging.
Hmm.
Okay. Address number one would be um, like my outside perspective, right? Like just like anybody else's perspective would be that I don't really think that there's any bias. And obviously, this depends series to series, track to track, organizer to organizer, so on and so forth.
Hmm.
Um, in certain places, is there bias in judging? I'm sure that there is. Like,
Hmm.
most in particularly, I hate to be a guy that promotes an FD sanctioned pro am and then be like hammering on FD, but like I think that we could all agree that we've seen some calls in FD that definitely seemed biased. Like
Absolutely.
for whatever the reason behind them might be, whether it's that the driver's been in FD since its inception and they're a fan favorite and they want to advance a fan favorite or like so on and so forth. But no, I really don't overall in general. And then in specific to the pro am, at Erie? No, not at all. Um, I think in competition drifting, it is a sport that is left to people's interpretation of something. And with that, there's going to be difference of opinion.
Yep.
Take six experienced judges as as sets of three, right? two different panels of judges, they're probably going to come up with different watching the same battle, they're going to come up with different bones to pick in the battle,
Hmm.
and they might even pick a different winner of the battle depending upon it. So what it really comes down to me is it's a great sport because it is in the driver's hands.
Hmm.
You want to really move on to the next thing, it's in your hands to be able to do it. And there's different situations on getting to that point. You know, if if I'm battling Adam and Adam's down a cylinder and I lead first, I can probably get away with being a little bit more conservative than hanging it all out there and taking a high risk opportunity to like touch a wall and straighten
Yeah.
versus when Adam's on all 8 cylinders, like, I know that his car is gonna go where I can put my car just as good as I can do it, then I'm gonna be a little bit more calculated with what risks I'm taking. And those risks ultimately are gonna be the deciding factor between me advancing and Adam advancing is who was closer, who filled the zones better, so on and so forth. Um, so in specific to address when a battle comes down so tight to where it's like tough to decide who's going to move forward, I think it comes down to who made the least amount of mistakes.
Yeah.
Like it's almost pretty black and white where the bias is eliminated out of it, right?
Yeah.
Like that's where like when you get back down to like my in particular situations there in Painesville, that it was more of a like an equal mistakes amount between both sides kind of thing where it gets a little bit more sketchy. And then that's where it gets into like my personal opinion of which way the bias should go when it gets like that is it should go lead for lead.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I guess if like if one lead is so heinously disgustingly bad and the other one's so good, like and you're still in this predicament of who or like say both leads were botched, then give it to the guy that painted his fucking door off. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that's where like people want style involved in judging, but then if push came to shove, you go back. You don't go to the style, right? You go back to the that's what I see happening more recently is judging wanting to be judged only on like zones, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Like if it really came down to it and you got that far, why not incorporate your thought of, well, that dude ran a killer chase. Like that dude made terrible mistakes in the lead and he did an excellent job of mimicking exactly what he got given.
Yeah.
I don't know. One way or the other. So that's kind of my opinion on that. And obviously I had read that question and had an opportunity to think about it a little bit and which way to go with it. And I just really don't think that there's lots of bias involved. Like you more so see it at FD in fan favorites
Yeah.
more, I think, than you see it at the little man level. The little man level, I think that they are always trying to give the benefit of the doubt to who did it better.
Right.
Like that's it. That's it. And that's the fair way to do it, right? Like it shouldn't be, well, you know, like and that's the biggest thing I think at the pro am level is those zones, right? You either go too off or you don't get enough and they hammer you either way. So the judges need to decide if they want to see all the commitment or some of it. But then you have to
Right.
judge the whole round accordingly. And if it were me and I were a judge, I'd be telling the guys to be committed, and I'm not hammering you for riding the white line. I'm not going to sit up there in the booth and go, "Oh, was that one off or two off?"
Right.
No, that was just good commitment to the zone. Like if he doesn't have that, he's just gonna miss the zone. So you know, it's just one of those things in drifting as a competitively judged, interpreted sport. Like, what are you gonna do?
Right. Yeah.
Somebody's got to advance.
Yeah, for sure. I think Erie has it pretty pretty locked in with the live stream and like drone stuff. Like it's pretty locked in there. So
Yeah.
uh,
Good question though.
yeah,
Thanks,
absolutely.
Susie.
Yeah. Good question, good answer for sure. Let's see. Bryce says, how many hot dogs can Ben Bruno eat in one sitting with and without the buns? I need an accurate measurement of both options.
uh, I can't say that I've ever sat down and just like scarfed down bun or bunless hot dogs. But I'm willing to venture that if you think, not necessarily you, Bryce, but anybody who listens to this or watches this, if you think that you can out eat me, let me know, and we can have a little Joey Chestnut style like hot dog off because your boy can eat. And honestly, like in the last couple of years, I feel like my stomach's like shrinking more. Like I'm not eating as bad as I was at one point in my life, and I can't eat as much. So I'm still betting on me over you. So I can't really give you a bun and bunless number, but I'd venture somewhere 20 or 30 shy of what Joey Chestnut could do. Call me Benny Chestnut.
Oh,
Fanny Chestnut.
Benny
Oh
Chestnut.
shit. Let's see. So Darren says, does he in fact know who Scott Petty is?
Hmm. See, I've heard that Scott Petty's real, and I've just never seen him in person, is the problem. Like, I've seen him post on the internet. I've heard that he's a really good RC drifter, but I just don't like every time you go like just try it yourselves. There's people that don't understand this Scott Petty thing. And like if you don't understand the Scott Petty thing, grab like 5 people the next time that you're at a drift event and be like, let's find Scott Petty.
You might find him, you might not.
More than likely you will not be able to locate this man. Yeah, he just like he's such a staple of tri-state drifting, but you can
Yeah.
never find him.
Yep.
So
I feel like if we somehow can get him on the podcast, it's just going to be like a blank screen,
just a just a ghost.
just a ghost.
But
Uh,
yeah, if you do know Scott Petty, you know he is the man. Scott
definitely.
Petty is the man. Like who else is out here doing what Scott Petty's doing besides nobody?
Right. uh, let's see. Vinny says, why so slow?
So me and Vinny have this like long ongoing thing now from my first year as the commentator because like he was going up against like Mike Sampson or like Troy or somebody, somebody that's got like 600 horsepower. And on the stream, I was like, oh, horsepower discrepancy, like horsepower discrepancy. Like, oh, he was able to stay right there, even though that there's a pretty decent horsepower discrepancy. Well, he
Yeah.
really, really didn't like that I was like inferring that like his car didn't make a lot of power because it's, supercharged uh M3 stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we just have this like long ongoing thing between us of like where he can't catch me and I can't catch him. But then when we drift, like his car always like I forget, like we've run some good laps together, but every time that we ever try to drive together, like mid lap, something like he'll get a flat or like his power steering goes or my power steering goes and so on. So we just have this like if you ever see in the comments of anything ever, it's always going to be if it's me and Vinny, it's always going to be something about catching doors and how he can't catch up and stuff like that.
That's funny. Um. Oh man. So you already kind of answered this, I think, sort of. Uh, Ryan Ranowski, I probably butchered that. He says milk or hot dog.
Yeah. Um I mean, hot dog's just so versatile. Like
I
you can
agree.
put a hot dog in your pocket and eat it later.
It's
You
true. You can't
can't
do that
you
with
can't
milk.
fill your pocket full of milk and drink it later.
I mean, you could put a Ziploc bag in your pocket, right?
I mean, like, I don't know.
That'd be
I think
gross.
that the age-old question is answered really, really easily. It's gotta be
Yeah,
hot dog.
definitely hot dog.
It's gotta be hot dog. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. But
Uh,
seriously though, you can't put milk in your pocket and drink it.
no, that'd be gross.
Come on.
It was a two-part question. So he says back to front or front to back.
Yeah, like I'm sure that you saw my response to him
Yeah.
on that one. It
Yeah.
just that's not even a question. That's why that was part of the video. If you haven't seen the video, I don't know what the title of it is. I know that there's a couple of them that have been posted now of me at like 3 o'clock in the morning, the better part of a 30 rack deep in beer, just like asking people about if they wipe their ass front to back or back to front. And if they'd
uh,
rather have hot dogs or milk, and if they knew who Scott Petty was and all that. You can go find them somewhere on the PA Ohio New York page. I don't know what to search. They're probably posted by Prop Productions or Rob Beal, but
might have to try and put a snippet in there or something like that.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
no.
Yeah, get
He
it.
said no.
Nope.
I mean, we had like a whole there was literally like a 4 hour stint from like 3 until 7 o'clock in the morning where we specifically talked to people about boar's head meat. Like, I didn't
Oh
even
my.
know what boar's head meat was before that, but apparently it's a
Uh,
hot commodity, so but at any rate, yeah, that one got asked in those videos because there's no question, and it was alarming how many people were okay answering that question that they wiped back to front. Like, you just get sh I don't even know if I wanna go down this road
Nope.
depending
Nope.
upon
Nope.
who listens
Nope.
to this.
nope.
It's a
We're
one
good.
answer question. It's back to front, dude. Come on, no
Oh
question.
shit. Uh, I have one more question. This was I actually reached out to Michael Corelli, and he said, "Does he see himself pursuing his commentary career like any further?" I'm assuming. Like,
So that's a good question because see, you guys probably don't know this side of me very much, but like I'm really big on like giving good advice to people. And this in particularly, I'm going to go on a small rant on this question.
right on.
You guys might have seen in the past couple of years cuz I know I've talked about it a couple times on Facebook and stuff that like there's places for you in things that you're passionate about that just aren't what you want them to be. Like, you want to be an FD, you're probably never going to be an FD. Like, you're just not if there's a will, there's a way and my god, like go for it. Like go for it. But the reality of you being able to maintain like $150,000 worth of drift car in operation, it's like relatively unsustainable. So like you can be an FD. You can be an FD as a photographer. You can be an FD as a social media person. You can be an FD as a commentator. You can be an FD as a spotter, a team member. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it applies to everything, right? Like, oh, you want to be in NASCAR? Well, guess what? You might not be a NASCAR driver. You might not be a NASCAR spotter. You might not be any of those things, but you sure as hell can do things to help you get there. Like, you can go work for your local, like me. Like, I helped my buddy Chad out. Like, I'm sure I could go to like some places and get my foot in the door off of, hey, here's these two containers full of wristbands of dirt track races that I've been a tire specialist at, like, and have my resume and hundreds of entry wristbands for doing his tires at races, like, and so on and so forth. Same thing. I didn't get into the commentary thing because I wanted to chase getting somewhere as a commentator, but which actually, funny enough, also started on the sim during COVID. I got the opportunity to work with a sim racing broadcasting company, so that's where I got my start into commentary too, was virtually on iRacing. Pretty cool. You can check
Yeah,
that stuff out too. If
it's
anybody wants
awesome.
to check that out, just shoot me a message because I'm sure nobody wants to check it out, but I can get you to where you can check it out. But at any rate, so like, yeah, like that's something that's been, a realization for me. Like, I got into drifting, I didn't have any kids, and I was making a lot more money than I am now. And I went like all gung ho and, bought the best of everything that I could buy to put in the car and all that stuff. Was my intention ever to be an FD? No, probably not. Like, my realization of what it costs to be competitive at a high level in any motorsport is a real one. And, like having kids and a regular job and not like working for a big automotive company or having a big automotive sponsor that wants me in a spot representing their products and all that good stuff. Like, yeah, the realization has come to me since having kids and not making the same money that I was and all that good stuff, that like, if I really wanted to be involved at a higher level, that there's other routes to do it. Like, that's something that I've always been really passionate about, is just racing in general. Like, I love NASCAR. In the last 5 years, I've become like this super hardcore NASCAR fan that I just never was. And like, not that I want to be anywhere, but like, there's been points in my life that I've looked at my wife and been like, let's just move to North Carolina. Like, there's success stories all over the place that are even crazier than what guys like us have in place. We have the race car. We have
Hmm.
the stuff to get it there. We have all that stuff. There's guys that had never even touched a race car or a tire that wanted to be a part of NASCAR, moved to North Carolina, sleeping on their buddy's couch, that would go to a race shop every day and be like, hire me, hire me, hire me. That, like, Chase Briscoe is a NASCAR driver. That's his exact story. He, like, Grant, he probably had racing experience. Like, he was racing, late models and stuff like that. But like, he had nothing going for him towards NASCAR, went and stayed on his buddy's couch and went to a race shop and asked for a job every day until they find, he was like a janitor, and then blah 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 and so on and so forth. Well, now he's driving. And is that going to happen? Is that a realistic thing for everybody? No, but like, can I take what I'm doing with the pro am seriously? Yeah, I mean, like, our streams are nationally broadcasted to like one of those free TV stations that you get on like Amazon TVs and stuff. It's called
Yeah.
Racing America. And like, even outside of that, like, the YouTube alone was doing, like 5 or 7K. And then the Facebook was doing, 3K or whatever. So, like, on average, like, at any given time, not that 3K were watching it all at once, but like, 10K people have heard my voice over one round of the pro am. Like, who's listening to it? That's another piece of advice in life in general, is like, if you're unhappy about something, you can't go freak out on your boss about it because you don't know what your boss is doing. Like maybe your boss really likes you as an employee and has the intentions of like branching off of this place that you're working at and wants you to be the one guy that he was going to bring with you. So don't
Yeah.
freak out and show how bad your attitude is to your boss just because something went wrong for you at work. You know what I mean? It's all the same all the way through life. It's just, make the most of the opportunities that are in front of you. If you're it's the same thing like you hear a lot in social media, right? Like from the photographers like, "Oh, I just can't find the motivation. I shot, 7,800 pictures this weekend." Okay, well, then you need to do one of 2 things, right? You need to reevaluate how passionate you really are about it. Like, if you're just enjoying the drift event now, don't be a photographer anymore. Or if you're not enjoying having to sift through 7,800 pictures from a weekend, take 2 SIM cards with you instead of 5 and shoot the 2,500 most meaningful ones instead of just trying to capture everything, right? Like you have that same aspect as a driver, right? You're like, "Oh my god, like my power steering line blew up. I'm running around Erie, Pennsylvania trying to find a power steering line that will work and now I have this terrible FOMO of missing the next session because like we were going to throw it down." And I just missed out on the best runs of the day while I was trying to find this. Like, dude, just take a step back and just enjoy it. Like, enjoy being a driver, enjoy being a photographer, enjoy being the commentator, like whatever it is. That was a big deal for me coming into this year was like, I had the second kid and I'm not making as much money as I used to be. And I'm like, maybe I just won't drive. But, like, I really can't do that to myself either, you know what I mean? Like, I'll run scrubby, nasty 500 treadwear, 225s, whatever I can scrape up to just go have that stress release of driving because as much as I enjoy commentating, as much as I enjoy being staff, it just doesn't do the same thing for me, you know? But like if you find the point where it starts to take away from your enjoyment of what you're doing, then you need to reevaluate why you're doing it. So, like if I'm taking on this Painesville thing and I'm commentating the pro am, if that takes away from me being a driver and that's where I'm finding my most enjoyment, then I just need to step away from those two things. Or if I'm really okay with being the commentator and helping organize the Painesville stuff, then I can step away from the driving. It just if it really weighs down your happiness and makes you stressed, like I spent a lot of time last year stressed out about not having the means to work on the car, maintain it the way that I feel it needs maintained. And like I've done some stuff like running on blown out control arm bushings. Like just because like I don't want to be out in my freezing ass garage with doing it on jack stands like by myself with the inadequate set of tools and now it's taken me 2 weeks to put lower control arm bushings in, right?
Yeah.
Like and that was a big deal for me last year. Like I beat myself up something terrible. Like I'm sure that you probably saw when I posted and I was like everything's for sale.
I do. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it was just because I was so pissed off at the fact that, like, I couldn't provide the drift car what it needed from me, which is a really crazy thing to say, right? But, like, I couldn't. And to the day, I still can't. Like, the control arm bushings are still blown out of it right now. Like, I need to take it over to Brian's house. And again, like that was a big part of that post too, was me inconveniencing other people for that kind of stuff made me feel like a piece of shit, like but Brian's glad to help me. It's just like, dude, I want to be able to be independent enough and have the garage heated and have all the tools that it's not this big hassle to do anything. So once I stepped away from that and just enjoyed driving what I could when I could, and I think that's going to be a big way for me to address the year this year is just finding the enjoyment in those things, driving when I
Yeah.
can, do the commentary, make the pro am a blast for everybody to be a part of, whether you're watching it or you're taking part in it. Same thing over at Paynesville, whether I'm competing in it or not. Just make sure that it's fun and fair for everybody and try to really build up what's going on there between the two. So that's a really good question. I've never put my total thought into like commentary being a thing for me. But yeah, it'd be awesome. Like I started with that sim doing oval racing. I want to call an oval race in the worst way. Like in the worst way. I've never called an oval race for real in person. It would be so much fun. I almost had the opportunity last year at the Speedway to do an oval race. I'm gonna try to make it a point to make sure that it actually happens this year. Um,
That's
and
awesome.
yes, so I would be really cool with like if because obviously like Jake Gettins knows us,
Yeah.
does the marketing stuff for the speedway, all that good stuff. He's a big part of Lake Erie Speedway, and obviously he's been in the booth with me before. It'd be really sweet, like, do I think it would ever happen? Do I think Jake knows me well enough? No. Like I have Jake's cell phone number, like we're not texting like buddies and stuff like that or anything, but like would it be super sick if like something came up and he was like, "Hey, like I can't do it, but I know that there's this kid Ben in here. He's got a really good voice. He's really smooth with it. Like he can come fill in and do this with, whoever, like, for like, like he's done some of that LZ World Tour commentary stuff. I'm talking some of that smaller pop-up-y kind of stuff that he takes part in that would he ever could that would be cool to me, yeah. Like, so but do I like, I'm not at home, like, working on my commentary to be better, to be at a point where, like, I'm hireable or anything. But at the same
Mhm.
time, I'm sorry to be so long-winded about it, but uh when I was just between jobs a couple months ago. I actually applied a bunch of places, a bunch of news stations, a bunch of different things like that, with hoping that having that like commentator production-y kind of side of things on my resume might be able to land me a job, um maybe with a news station or something like that. So
That's cool. That's
yeah,
real cool.
I
It
didn't.
sounds
I did not
it
end
def
up landing a news station job.
I mean, it definitely sounds like you're super passionate about it. So that's awesome. That's all the questions I have though. So
Oh, guys, we've been at this for a while.
that's gotta be close to 3 hours.
Well, let's just end it there.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching, everybody. We are the Dangerous Knights Drift Crew, and this is our friend Ben Bruno. And all of our information, if you're watching, is right below my finger. Uh, Ben, point forward. Perfect. There's all of our information. So, yes, thank you, and stay tuned for the next one. Everybody say
See
goodbye.
ya. See ya.